Hello trumpet players and musicians in general. This is video number 2 in our Stage Fright series. We're going to talk about forgiveness. In the first video, I spoke a little bit about what my symptom was. I didn't get any other symptoms. It was just dry mouth. But you can imagine for a trumpet player, that's devastating. But what I didn't mention was what I believe today to be the source of my stage fright in the first place. I believe it was a lack of forgiveness. But not just general forgiveness, I think the way it works is that if you have specific things that you hold against people, that, the Bible has, Jesus said that whatever measurement you measure other people with, it's going to be measured back to you. I'm going to repeat that. However you measure other people, it is going to be measured back to you. So if you go around saying, that guy's not good enough, that guy's not good enough, oh, I can't stand the way he plays. If that's the way you live your life, it's going to be measured back to you. And I actually believe that in a real practical sense, when we live that way, it is a deep and disturbing source of self-judgment when we get on stage and perform. A deep and disturbing source. And I'd like to trace my own personal judgment of other people back to my education, and I'm not blaming my band directors. Don't think it's not a band director thing, it's a culture thing. Music culture has always been about telling people how bad they are. We've talked about this in some of my other videos, right? Traditional lessons, I've been lisping. Traditional lessons are, this is the model, right? You show up to the master sits there, and you play the etude, and you can play a F sharp instead of F natural, and he goes, F natural, fix it. That's sharp, that's flat. The whole job of the master is to tell you everything you've done wrong. That's what the culture has become. And if you don't believe that, take a step back and look. If you don't believe that, take a step back. I don't think it was originally that. I think in the beginning it was originally, because remember, music education, at least on the band side, has military roots. If you are part of the band culture, that culture has military roots. And military is about discipline and self-discipline. So when in the early tradition, when the teacher said, sit up straight, he wasn't just telling you that you were doing it wrong. He was motivating you to do it right. But somewhere along the way, this got warped. And no longer is it about motivation. No longer is about discipline and self-discipline. Now it has become a culture of criticism. And it's destructive because that criticism is handed down from generation to generation. When I say generation, I mean generation of students and teachers. The teacher hands it down to the student, who becomes a teacher, who hands it down to the next student. I have no problem with discipline. We need self-discipline. That's one of the problems in our world today, is self-discipline has been demonized somehow. I have no problem with teachers that still teach that way. I have a problem with people who only criticize. Even if you criticize and tell them this is how you fix it, I have a problem still with that. Because of the damage that it does, on stage. Now, what do I do differently as a teacher? I feel like I have joined with this student as a partner to solve problems, not to criticize. I have joined with the student to solve problems. So if the sound is not good enough, I don't say, that sounds awful, we need to fix this. Because the reality is, sound is on a spectrum. We should constantly be improving the sound. I'm not going to tell the student, this sound is not good enough for me. I guess that's part of what I'm talking about. This is not about my standards and you're not living up to my standards. This is about you growing your standards. That's extremely important to me. I know on the surface, sometimes it looks exactly the same. It's not the same. So the reason I'm telling you this, getting back to the stage fright stuff, because I am a teacher. So when I say that it was my lack of forgiveness that prevented me from performing well, I think it was rooted in this old style of teaching where I thought my job was to tell you all the stuff you're doing wrong. If I tell my students that's not good enough, and then I go on stage and do the same thing they did, how do I prevent myself from just falling apart? You can't. Not if you have a conscience. So that's where this whole forgiveness thing came from. And maybe forgiveness, now that I'm talking about it here live, maybe forgiveness isn't the right word, but I think the reason I chose forgiveness as the topic here is this biblical concept of what measurement you use to judge other people, that's the measurement going to be used on you. And we see this manifest itself on stage. So, earlier I said, if you're one of those people that goes around saying, I don't like this guy, I don't like this guy, this is not good enough, that's enough to cause deep-rooted issues in your performances. It doesn't make you any better of a musician to say, for example, all my life people have been putting Wynton Marsalis down. It's like politics, right? Half of the country's Democrat and half of the country's Republican. Well, half of the country loves Wynton Marsalis and half of them don't. And that's all right. I'm sure Wynton's okay with that. I don't want to speak for him, But I mean, this is just a fact of life, right? I'm sure that my ratio is more like 10% people like what I do, and then the other 90% don't like it. So he's doing better than I am. But the point is, what about those people the 50% who don't like Wynton? Do you understand that your vocalization of your not liking him, his music, is going to create issues for you on stage? Because the measurement for 99% of you watching this video, you'll never be as good as he is. Why would you do that to yourself? If you're saying that's the standard, think about what I'm saying. If you're saying that's the standard, Wynton is not good enough to please me. Now you go on stage, you're not even half as good as Wynton. How do you expect to not have a manifestation of that, what Jesus said? The measurement that you used on Wynton is the measurement that is now going to be applied to you. You cannot avoid the inevitable at this point. You will never, and you might say, well, I'm one of those people that doesn't like Wynton and I'm vocal about it and I play pretty well. I'm going to promise you don't play your best. You can't possibly. Maybe I'm wrong. This is my theory. This is my little world. Welcome to my little world. This is how I see it. Whatever measurement you use to judge other people, that's what you go to stage with. When you perform, that's what you have on your shoulder. So the words forgiveness come in here. Forgiveness says, that's how Wynton plays. I'm okay with that. He's not offending me, right? If he does offend me, I forgive him for offending me. Let me tell you how some of the other manifestations. I had a terrible gig, a big band gig. What is it with the big band gigs? And once again, was I playing lead or jazz? That's one of the things, right? I like the fact that my career, they can call me for whatever chair they want. I'm not saying I'm the best lead player in the world, but there are people that like my lead playing more than other people's lead playing, so that's good enough for me. So I don't remember. I think maybe I was on the solo chair. And there was somebody on that gig that at the time I thought was holding my career back. Maliciously holding my career back. And I was angry at him. I was mad. And when I got on that stage, and in fact, I think it was this performance that this forgiveness stuff started to make sense to me. I had an awful crash and burn gig that night because he was on the gig. All I could think about was how much this guy had hurt me in my career. And it turns out I was wrong. It turns out that that's how life is, isn't it? I was completely wrong about it. It's a good thing that I never told anybody about this, only in generalities, right? Because I would be so ashamed. This guy is a friend of mine now. I would be so ashamed to admit how angry I was with him. I would be ashamed if he knew. absolutely ashamed. But it was my anger towards him, my unforgiveness towards him, that caused me to play so badly that night. And there's other less severe episodes that I had. I'm going to give you one more example of this unforgiveness stuff from my career. In the 90s, what used to make me the most angry, aside from that one other gig, what used to make me the most angry was when the sound man didn't take care of our needs as trumpet players, our needs as horn players. And the PA gets louder and louder and louder, and they keep putting the trumpet player lower and lower and lower. And here's the thing, by that time I didn't have the skill yet to play loud with all that flexibility and all that dexterity and good tone and stuff like that. When I played loud, it sounded awful. And so the reason I had this resentment towards the sound man, because the sound man was making me sound bad. And I had no forgiveness in my heart for that. And it would make me play even worse. And in fact, when I finally did get great technique and a better sound at the louder volumes, I have to believe this is absolutely true. I have to believe that it was because I got to a place in my life where I could forgive the sound man for ruining my career, right? So, and you can see how what Jesus said can apply to this. If the way I'm approaching the sound man, I'm holding the sound man to a standard. Now I'm on stage, and you know what? I'm no better than that sound man. Who am I? There's nothing about me that's any better than that sound man that's like making me play so badly. So when I got to the place where I could forgive, walk in forgiveness, walk in the peace that comes from forgiveness, that's when I got the better control when I was playing loud. And you can see how psychologically that could happen, right? Because if you're being negative and you're trying to combat this thing in a negative light, you're angry, right? That's not going to go well, you know? I call that negative motivation. Maybe one of these days we'll have a video about negative motivation. I think it's a evil thing. Negative motivation is when you say, I'll show you. I'll show you. Talk about me like that. Right? That's negative motivation. We don't want that. That's poisonous. That'll kill you. I mean, really kill you. That kind of motivation will make you sick and eventually make you die because it's poisonous to your body. So I promised you in the previous video that we will talk about practical things to do in the realm of forgiveness. For me, what I had to do was assume, because what happened with that guy at that big band gig is I found out the true story behind it. Wow, how ashamed I was of myself. There have been many moments in my life where I was ashamed of myself. That was one of the worst of them. And I came to this conclusion. You know, God tells us that we're supposed to forgive. But when we don't know why the guy is doing that, you know, it's easier once you know why. It's easier when you know the truth behind why that guy did that to you. It's easier. So I made a decision. I made a decision to trust God that there was a reason why. From now on, getting just a little emotional here. I apologize for that. From now on, from that point on, I made the decision to trust God that there's a reason why that guy did this to me and that guy did that to me. That if I knew the whole story, see, God knows the story. God knows the whole story. And God is the one that wants me to forgive him. Or her, whoever it is, right? So here's the practical part of it. And I don't know how this would apply to non-Christians. But as a Christian, I have to say, God wants me to forgive this guy. He knows the backstory. So I'm going to just trust God that there's a backstory, that if I knew the backstory, I'm getting emotional. Let me clear my thoughts here. I don't like being emotional. I'm a very stoic person. I don't like showing emotion. If I want to trust God that if I knew the backstory, that God already knows, that it would be easy for me to forgive that person. So this is when I talk about forgiveness in this context, I talk about trust. Trusting God, not that person. Most people are not trustworthy. Trusting God that there's a reason why I should forgive that person, that if I knew that reason, I would easily forgive them, just like I did this other guy that I'm talking about. The truth is, with that other guy, there was actually nothing that he had ever done wrong. There was nothing for me to forgive. And I guess in that sense, this is not necessarily about forgiveness. I hope that makes sense. But I don't know. I don't have a better word to put it, a better word to use, or a better way to put it. I hope that makes sense. Now, I also promised you that in the practice session, there are some things that we can do that are practical. The practical thing outside of practice is to assume that there is a backstory. Assume that if you knew the backstory, that that person who is doing this to you, you would forgive them. Now, let's be clear about that. That doesn't mean now that you're best friends. Now, with the guy I was talking about, we did later become not close friends, but we're pretty good friends. But that's not necessary. You can forgive your enemies and they can continue to remain enemies. That's what forgiveness is, the true forgiveness. It's when you let go of your judgment of that other person. And you see the connection with what I was talking about with Jesus? Now, what is the practical side of this? And I said I was in the future going to talk about negative motivation, but this is part of that. If the reason you're practicing is because someone hurt you and you want to show them, the reason you're practicing is because everyone's always made you feel like you're not good enough, and you're going to show them, you can put that to rest. You can end that now. That's not healthy. That will kill you eventually. You right now, you think it's giving you motivation. But that's the kind of thing is reevaluate why you're practicing, reevaluate what your goals are and why you have those goals. If you're if what you're trying to do is because you've had such a terrible life, you're trying to with your trumpet come out on top. You know what's wrong with all of that? It's not musical. It's not musical. The practical part of this for your practice time is to start to adopt musical goals instead of goals that are rooted in unforgiveness. Switch your entire practice philosophy so that you are now focused on achieving musical goals. And I'll tell you what, if you do that, not only will your stage fright start to go away, can you imagine what kind of stage fright this is? If you've got that inside of you and now you go on stage, wow, you're a powder keg just waiting to blow up. If you switch, the biggest problem I have in these videos is I keep cutting myself off. Okay, I apologize for that. I'm going to start working on that and try not to do that. If you can switch and start to have more genuinely musical goals instead of saying, I'm going to show them, and establish musical goals, that will go a long, long, long way towards helping you fix your stage fright issues. A long, long way. Okay? Please let this sink in. Because there's a lot of this going on out there. There's a lot of this going on. And I have not, in any of these videos, we've got over 1,000 videos on this channel. I've never gotten emotional on any of them. So you can see how much this means to me. I'm not going to edit any of that out, even though it bothers me. You know, I'm not an emotional person. I consider myself a Stoic with a small s, Christian with a capital C. In other words, Stoic as an adjective, Christian as a noun. And what that means is I try not to let my emotions control my behavior. That doesn't mean I'm part of the Stoic philosophy. I don't consider myself a Stoic. But I don't like showing emotion like that. I think it, in this case, I think it actually helps me make my point. Because you've not seen me emotional. You have not seen me. And the fact that this subject is so important to me that I would have trouble containing it. I didn't cry or anything, but I was like this close. Right? All right, so yes, as always, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to ask. And you know what? If you're not a Christian, now I don't normally evangelize in these videos. I don't consider it professional. And I believe that as a Christian, it is unprofessional for me to use my videos to in a deceptive way. So this doesn't follow that. Okay, I'm not trying to force anyone on any belief on anybody. However, if you are having forgiveness issues, I want to say right now, Christianity is all about forgiveness. The cornerstone of what, if you want to say, what does Christianity have for me? That's what it has for you. People will say everlasting life. I'm more interested a lot of times. I shouldn't say it that way. In the context of this video, what we're interested in is practical, real life benefits of being a Christian. The whole point of Christianity is that Jesus, being God himself, came down in human form, lived a human life, did not have any sin while he was here, and was crucified for our sins as a payment for everything we'd ever done wrong in our lives. So when I say that I have forgiven other people for the things that I perceived as them doing wrong to me, and I have to say it that way because in a lot of cases they never did anything wrong to me. I do this because he forgave me. Jesus died to forgive my sins. And what is sin? Sin is what you do that's wrong, that's evil, that's selfish, and stuff like that. Sin is when you put yourself over God and yourself over other people. That's what sin is. People want to get all shook up. Oh, sin, sin, sin. It's not a religious thing. And I'm just telling you, if you have problems with unforgiveness, there's an easy answer. Jesus has already taken care of that for you. Now, I promise in other videos I won't do this. It's just that it's applicable here. Not trying to evangelize. But if it would be wrong for me not to mention it, right? If I care about you, and you're going through a lot of the stuff I was going through, forgiveness is what Christianity is all about. We are forgiven. Jesus even said this in his parables. In fact, he said it outright many times too in a lot of his sermons, Sermon on the Mount and stuff like that, right? He said, if you don't forgive, you're not forgiven. Now, in fact, that's what that other thing I told you about, whatever measurement you use to measure other people, to judge them, that's the measurement that's going to come back to you. So think about how different all of this is for a Christian, knowing that the Christian himself has that forgiveness inside of him. That's the starting point of a Christian's life, his new life. His new life in Christ, right? So, once again, I don't believe that was outside of the boundaries of what I teach. I've got over 1,000 videos, and none of them have this kind of evangelizing on it. Okay, so it's not really evangelizing. We are staying on topic here. And by the way, that's how my lessons are too. I promise I don't evangelize in the lesson, but if you are a Christian and something comes up in your lessons and there's a Christian answer for the problem, then we're going to talk about that. If you're not a Christian, I will not cross that line because I believe it is unprofessional, and a Christian should not be deceptive, and a Christian should not be unprofessional. I know there's a lot of Christians that would disagree with me on that, But that's how I feel. Anyway, this is one of the most emotional videos I've ever made. It's one of the most important videos I ever made. If you are struggling with stage fright, I would like to ask you to take a step back. Evaluate your musical life and see if there is unforgiveness. I'm not telling you to become a Christian. Other religions have forgiveness in them. It's just that Christianity, that is the cornerstone of our belief. It is all based on forgiveness. All right? So, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below or join us on our sort of weekly Q and A. We have a Q and A session, question answer session on most Fridays. Sometimes, like when we're in December, it might not be most Fridays. It might be one December and Friday. We'll see how the season pans out. But you can join us on the Q and A's and ask your questions directly to me live and get your answers right there. Okay? We encourage you to come out and hang out with us. All right, so that's what I've got for you. This is video number 2 in the Stage Fright series. Let's get on with the next one. It'll come out in a week. Thank you. God bless you, and thank you.